Welcome to Revenge with Joanne. Where are you watching from? Write in the comments. And now, let's dive into the story. I knew something was wrong the moment I took the chair across from Martin Reynolds. He didn't look up, didn't bother with small talk, didn't even pretend this was a conversation. He just slid a thick manila folder over his polished glass desk like I was some temporary hire who'd messed up a timesheet. His lips curved into that smug half-smile he wore whenever he thought he had the upper hand. "Go ahead," he said, tapping the folder with one finger. "Open it." I pulled it toward me, slow, already bracing myself. Inside was a single page, salary adjustment. For a split second, my brain refused to process the words. Then it hit me all at once, sharp and hot. He was cutting my pay in half. Not trimming a bonus, not freezing a raise, a straight 50% cut. My chest tightened like someone had pressed pause on my lungs. I read the number again, then a third time, hoping I'd misread it. 7 years. 7 years of cleaning up disasters, calming furious clients, holding operations together while Martin disappeared for extended lunches and took credit for delegating. I lifted my eyes slowly. "Is this a mistake?" I asked, keeping my voice even by pure force of will. Martin leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, like a king bored with petitioners. "No mistake," he said. "This is the new normal, Natalie. We're restructuring. You can take it or you can leave." Quick note before we go any further, tell us where you're watching from. What city or country are you in right now? My jaw clenched so hard it ached. I didn't blink. I didn't give him the reaction he was fishing for. "And when does this start?" I asked. He tilted his head, pretending to consider, but I caught the flash of satisfaction in his eyes. "Immediately," he said. "Today." The word landed like a slap. I nodded once, folded the paper carefully, and slid the folder back across the desk. Understood. Nothing else. I stood, picked up my bag, and walked out without looking back. My heels clicked down the hallway, each step echoing louder than the last. I could feel his gaze burning into me, probably waiting for me to break, to turn around and bargain, but something inside me shifted instead. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I didn't sit in my car screaming. I drove home in dead silence, hands locked around the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Martin thought he'd won. What he didn't know was that his little smirk had just lit the fuse. 3 weeks before that meeting, before he decided to gut my paycheck, I'd received a LinkedIn message from a woman named Emily Carter, founder of Rising Sun Consulting. She wanted to meet for coffee. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another generic recruiter pitch, but when I checked her profile, it wasn't fluff. Real company, rapid growth, solid reputation, and her message wasn't copy-pasted. She named specific accounts I'd managed, even mentioned a campaign I've run for Swift Enterprises that only the client and I knew the details of. That stopped me. We met the next afternoon at a quiet cafe downtown, all wood tables and strong espresso. She was already there when I walked in, dressed casually, confident, grounded. When she shook my hand, she looked straight at me like she'd already made her mind. "Thanks for meeting me, Natalie," she said. "I've been following your work." I listened while she explained. Clients talk. My name kept coming up, especially with the accounts everyone else avoided. I asked what she wanted. She didn't dance around it. A leadership role, equity, partnership, the chance to build something instead of propping up someone else's ego. My stomach twisted. I wanted it, but 7 years of loyalty doesn't disappear overnight. "Loyalty only works when it goes both ways," she said gently, like she already knew my answer. She told me to think about it, called it a reset button. I went back to work pretending nothing had changed, but the thought followed me everywhere. Late nights, ghostwriting Martin's emails, watching him present my work as his own. The night I'd stayed until midnight fixing his budget disaster, only to watch him take credit for it the next morning, was when the rot really set in. I didn't reach out to Emily. I waited. Then Martin slid that salary cut across his desk, and every doubt vanished. That night, I stood alone in my dark kitchen, wine untouched, phone buzzing on the table. Emily checking in, asking if I'd decided. Respect. That's what pushed me over. I wrote my resignation, short and clean, 2 weeks' notice, printed it, saved a copy, slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I walked into Martin's office early and placed the letter on his desk. No drama, no speech. He barely reacted. Business as usual, he said. We'll manage. I smiled, turned, and walked out lighter than I'd felt in years. I spent the next 2 weeks doing what I always did, cleaning up, organizing, leaving everything clearer than I found it. People noticed. Whispers started. Anna from finance pulled me aside near the copier. "Are you really leaving?" she asked. I nodded. Damn, Martin's gonna be screwed. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. What mattered was making sure I left with zero regrets. So I kept showing up, kept answering questions, scheduling meetings, helping others pick up the slack. Not to protect Martin, but for the team, the ones who actually gave a damn. The morning of my last day, I came in early again, dropped off a handwritten list of client contacts and weekly priorities on the assistant manager's desk. I cleaned out my drawers, took down the photo of my niece, left the mug I never really liked. At 4:55, I shut down my computer. Martin didn't say goodbye. He didn't even show his face. I walked around the office once, said a few quiet goodbyes, shook a couple hands, and headed for the elevator. No speeches, no drama. Just clean exit. When the elevator doors closed, I finally let myself breathe deep. My chest rose and dropped like I'd come up for air. I stepped outside into the warm, late afternoon air. My heels clicked on the sidewalk. The sun was still out. The street smelled like hot pavement and coffee from the shop across the street. I didn't look back. At exactly 5 o'clock, I walked to my car, opened the door, sat down, and smiled. It was over. The following Monday, I parked in front of a sleek brick building with tall windows and Rising Sun Consulting printed in sharp gold lettering across the door. My palms were sweating, but it wasn't fear. It was something closer to adrenaline. I walked in and was greeted by a receptionist who actually smiled like she meant it. She handed me a badge, then pointed me toward the elevator. "Emily's waiting upstairs. She's excited to see you." I nodded, trying not to grin like a kid on Christmas morning. When I stepped off the elevator, Emily was already at the glass entrance, waving me in. "Welcome home," she said, and led me down the hallway to an office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. "This is yours now," she said, flipping on the light. "You'll meet the team after lunch. I've already prepped them. Everyone's pumped." It hit me right then. I wasn't here to fill some role. I was here because they wanted me, not as a cog, as a partner. After settling in, I spent the morning getting familiar with the systems. Clean, organized, modern. Nothing like the mess I just escaped. Emily introduced me to the department heads one by one. They all came in, shook my hand, looked me in the eye. There were no power games, no sideways glances, just respect. Around 1, Emily knocked on my door. "You up for meeting some key clients this afternoon?" I leaned back in my chair. I've been up for that since I woke up. She grinned. "Thought so." She looped me into 2 video calls, one with a logistics firm out of Denver, another with a renewable energy group in Portland. Both clients were engaged, sharp, and treated me like I was already part of the solution. It was almost surreal. That afternoon, I opened up an old contact sheet from my previous job. I wasn't poaching, but I knew damn well those relationships hadn't just disappeared because I changed email addresses. And sure enough, around 3:15, my phone rang. Simon Harrove, Global Tech. "Hey, Natalie," he said, his voice rushed but warm. "I heard you left. That true?" "Yeah," I said, keeping it simple. "New chapter?" He sighed hard into the phone. "Figures. Things have been off. We're not getting straight answers. Some project timelines slipped. Nobody seems to know who's doing what over there anymore." I didn't comment. "You working somewhere new?" he asked. "I am partnered with Rising Sun now." "Good for you. You deserve that." He paused. "Can I ask if I send over a few details? Could you, I don't know, just give me your take, unofficially?" I glanced at the office door. It was quiet outside. I lowered my voice. "Sure, Simon, send it over." He thanked me, then hung up. I sat back in my chair and stared out the window. I hadn't sent a single email to lure anyone away. I hadn't made one call to stir things up. But people don't chase titles, they chase competence. Martin could keep his empty desk and his empty ego. People like Simon, they'd find their way to where the real work happened.
I smiled and turned back to my computer. Time to build. The day after Simon's call, the updates started rolling in, not from the news or LinkedIn, just quiet direct texts and emails from people still stuck in the wreckage Martin called leadership. Anna from accounting was the first. Anna, not sure if you've heard, but Martin's been in meltdown mode since Monday. I replied with a simple, not surprised. An hour later, she called. Okay, I know you're gone, and I swear I'm not gossiping, she said, sounding half whisper, half panicked. But it's a mess here. Martin's freaking out. I leaned back in my chair. What happened? Clients are calling nonstop asking where you went, who's in charge, why nothing's getting done. Maria Chang left 2 voicemails basically threatening to pull the Swift account if someone doesn't get back to her by tomorrow. That made me raise an eyebrow. Maria didn't bluff. Didn't you train Greg to take over Swift before I left? I asked. Yeah, well, he quit yesterday. I let out a low breath. Wow. And Martin, he just keeps saying, we'll figure it out. That's his new line for everything. It's chaos. Sounds about right. Anna paused. Natalie, I don't think he ever really knew what you did here. He didn't want to. She went quiet for a second. You're better off. I know. We hung up and I stared at my phone for a while, just letting the silence sit. By the next morning, Emily stopped by my office with her tablet. You'll love this, she said. Check the contact blog. She handed it to me, and there it was. 2 new inquiry emails from former clients, one from Swift Enterprises, one from Global Tech. No sales pitch, no cold calls, just straight up, can we set up a meeting? That afternoon, my phone rang again. David Keller, the voice said, from Print Pro. You remember me? Of course, I said. What's going on? He sighed into the line. I hate to even make this call, but I'm trying to figure out who's running things over there now. We've got 2 late invoices and no answers. Martin promised a PO last week, and now he's dodging calls. I didn't say much, just listened. Look, I know you're gone, David added, but you were the only one who ever kept things straight. Is there anyone left over there who knows what's going on? No one I'd bet on, I said plainly. Didn't think so. He paused. You landed somewhere else yet? I did, partnered with Rising Sun Consulting. He let out a small laugh. That's a solid name. If things keep going like this, I may reach out. You should, I said. We'd be happy to talk. I hung up and opened my notebook, made a little note. David K., potential supplier contact. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't take shortcuts. I didn't have to. Martin's downfall wasn't sabotage. It was exposure. He ran out of people to hide behind. I leaned over my desk and opened my laptop and drafted a short follow-up email as Simon, kept it professional, straightforward, no promises, just clarity. I knew where this was heading. They weren't just calling for help, they were looking for me. 2 days after my call with David, the first contract dropped, Swift Enterprises. I was in a budget planning meeting when Emily walked in holding her tablet like it was hot. She didn't say anything, just turned the screen toward me. Subject line, formal termination of services, Swift Enterprises. No fluff, no excuses, they were done. The email copied Martin, his assistant, and some poor junior rep who probably had no idea what hit him. The final paragraph hit hard. We no longer feel confident in your ability to support our needs. We will be transitioning to a firm better aligned with our expectations for reliability, professionalism, and clarity. Emily lowered the tablet. We're setting up a call with their exec team tomorrow. You in? Absolutely. An hour later, Global Tech followed. Same deal. Formal goodbye, clean break, clear reasons, lack of communication, missed deadlines, no leadership. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I just read the messages slowly, each line confirming what I already knew. They were never Martin's clients, they were mine. Martin, of course, went into full panic mode. I didn't see it myself, but Anna kept the updates coming. Anna, he tried calling Maria. She told him to lose her number. Anna, he held an emergency meeting. Half the department didn't show up. Anna, he's blaming Greg for leaving. Greg was there for like 4 weeks. I almost felt bad. Almost. By the end of that week, Emily and I were booked solid. Clients that had gone silent after I left were now scheduling meetings directly through our site. I walked into a Thursday morning Zoom call, opened the participant list, and nearly laughed. 3 names, all from my old client portfolio. First up was Laura from Pinnacle Distribution. Her camera came on and she didn't even bother with small talk. I'm going to be honest, I gave Martin's team a shot, but it's been a mess. Missed shipments, no updates, and the one person who used to make sense of it all left. She looked at me directly. So here I am. Emily gave me a slight nod. "We're happy to talk, Laura." By the following week, Rising Sun was onboarding 2 new contracts and negotiating with a third. The office energy shifted, everyone felt it. The pace picked up, more hands on deck, more strategy meetings, and through it all, Emily made sure I was at the table, not just in the room. At one point, she leaned into my office and said, "You built a quiet legacy, Natalie. It's loud now." I didn't say anything back. I just smiled. We were closing deals fast, but it wasn't reckless. It was focused. We weren't chasing Martin's clients.
They were running from him. One afternoon during a coffee break, our business analyst, Jen, slid a report across my desk. "Thought you'd like to see this." It was a breakdown of new client revenue over the past 2 weeks. Almost 30% of it was directly tied to accounts I'd managed before. That number hit harder than any insult Martin ever threw my way. It wasn't revenge, it was validation. And the best part? We weren't done. Emily and I started scheduling exploratory meetings with firms I'd never even worked with before, but who had heard my name through the grapevine. One rep from a mid-sized West Coast logistics company actually said, "You're the one who cleaned up global tech vendor chaos, right?" I blinked. I did. We want that kind of leadership. Leadership. Not support, not backup, leadership. By the end of the month, we were hiring, not scrambling, scaling. And every time I updated my calendar, added another name to our pipeline, or onboarded a familiar contact, it just drove the same point home. Martin never built a business. He built a throne on top of other people's work. Now that the foundation was gone, it was collapsing in real time. By the second week of Rising Sun's growth spurt, the stories coming out of Martin's office stopped being whispers and turned into full-on sirens. Jake called me out of nowhere, one of the last decent people still holding that place together. "Natalie," he said, voice low and tired, "I'm not going to last much longer. You okay?" He laughed, but it wasn't funny. Nobody's okay. 3 people walked out this week. The new project manager quit mid-call. Martin didn't even know her name. Seriously? Dead serious. He's unraveling, talking in circles. No direction, no answers. Vendors aren't responding. Clients are ghosting. We had a team huddle this morning and everyone just stared at each other like hostages. I leaned back in my chair, my stomach tight. I knew it was bad, but not like this. Jake kept going. "Morale's dead. People are scared. He's threatening legal action against anyone who defects, whatever that means. Said he's got a lawyer watching for intellectual theft. It's pathetic." Is he serious? Oh yeah, total desperation mode. That night I stayed late going over onboarding files. Emily had just left for the day when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost let it go, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" "Hi, Natalie. It's Laura from Martin's team." I sat up. "Laura?" "Yeah, sorry for calling out of the blue, but I don't know who else to talk to." Her voice was shaky, like she wasn't sure if this was a good idea. "I am still at the company," she said, barely, "but I'm trying to leave quietly before things explode." I didn't say anything, just listened. He's completely lost it, screaming in meetings, blaming people who aren't even here anymore. He even mentioned your name yesterday, said you orchestrated this whole thing like some corporate coup or something. Of course he did. "I just want out," Laura continued, "but I'm locked into this weird, unofficial NDA he made us sign last year. No HR, no support. He's threatening to blacklist anyone who walks." "Have you spoken to a real attorney?" I asked. "I can't afford one right now." My hands clenched under the desk. I hated hearing it, hated knowing people I cared about were stuck in that toxic hellhole. Laura dropped her voice to a whisper. "I've got a flash drive with files, internal audits, unpaid vendor reports, all of it. I wasn't looking for dirt. I just wanted to understand how bad things were." I didn't respond right away. My brain was spinning. She broke the silence. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone, I just don't want to drown with this place. I thought maybe Rising Sun?" "Laura," I cut in gently, "I get it, I really do, but I can't make that decision for you." A pause. "I understand. I'm not your savior. If you want out, you'll have to make the jump. We're building something here, but we're not a rescue squad." "I know." Her voice cracked just a little. "Thanks for picking up."
Stay smart. Don't let him bully you." She hung up. I sat there in the dark, watching the city lights flicker through the office window. Part of me wanted to burn what was left of Martin's empire to the ground, expose everything, take that flash drive and finish the job. But I didn't. I didn't need revenge. What I needed was peace, growth, my name on something real. I shut my laptop, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the office into the night. Martin could keep spiraling. I was done cleaning up his messes. It was one of those overpriced industry mixers. Hotel ballroom, fake smiles, cheap wine and plastic cups. I was there with Emily, shaking hands, building partnerships, doing what actual leaders do. We were walking toward the main floor when I saw him, Martin. He looked like hell. Sunken eyes, suit too loose, tie crooked. The man who used to strut around like he owned the sky now looked like he'd barely slept in a week. His eyes locked on mine, and I saw the exact moment it clicked. He made a beeline straight towards me, cutting through a group of execs mid-conversation. "Natalie," he said, breath sharp, "we need to talk." I didn't flinch. "No, we really don't." He laughed bitter. "You think this is funny? You think this is a win for you?" I kept my voice low and calm. "This isn't a game. It never was. You destroyed my company," he snapped, loud enough to turn heads. I tilted my head. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped fixing everything. The silence hit like a wave. People nearby went quiet. Eyes shifted. Conversations paused. Martin stared at me, jaw clenched, chest rising fast. But there was nothing left for him to say. I stepped past him. "Good luck, Martin." Emily followed me out of the circle, not saying a word until we were down the hallway. "You all right?" she asked. Better than ever. We made it back to Rising Sun that Monday with 2 new client contracts and 3 more interviews lined up. We were hiring, expanding, growing. Martin's company, last I heard, the lights were still on, but barely. Legacy is not about how loud you are when you're on top. It's about who still stands when the noise dies.